This week's episode, we're doing How Would I Edit Your Photo? And Scott is out gallivanting around the country, so we'll have a special guest in the studio with us in just about 60 seconds.
The Grid is brought to you by Platypod, the tripod alternative that is changing the world. Everybody has a Platypod. You should too. Go to platypod.com.
Well, hey, everybody. As you can see, Scott's not here. He's out gallivanting, but we have Christina joining us again this week.
Hey.
So, yeah, welcome, Christina. Thanks for coming on. And I think Christina's she's gonna really dig into the chat, doing comments, monitoring your stuff, and then any questions we would have about anything we do today. Really gonna be focused on how would I edit your photo. So Scott put out a call yesterday for photos, dropped into a folder. I've downloaded images from there, and we're gonna go through a bunch of your images and just show you how I would edit your photo. So it's gonna be very similar to what Scott does because we have very similar editing styles. But it's always interesting, I think, with these shows. I know with me, I love seeing these because it's interesting to see how other people would edit your photo. You know? Now, some of these photos, I looked at them, I mean, we like to get the raw and edited ones. Sometimes we did not get that, but we'll do what we can with them. So there we go.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you do. I was thinking about that today too, because normally it is Scott, and I was like, oh, it'll be fun to see how Erik edits the photo.
But it's going to be, like I say, it's always going to be very similar because, I mean, we have, again, very similar editing styles. In fact, I've learned a lot of my Photoshop from Scott Kelby.
That makes sense.
In the last 20 years. So there you go. All right. So what do we have going on this week? We got some prizes to give away, right, Christina? So
yes, we sure
we're
do.
giving away prizes on the show.
Yep.
So what do we have?
Today we are going to give away some Platypod goosenecks.
Ooh, loosey goosey.
Which can be used to help you mount things, and they're bendy. So is that what they? Yeah, that's the term
bendy.
that you guys use. Loosey goosey.
Loosey goosey. Yeah, they're great if you have like macro shooting, or you want to like the lights there, you want to hold up, or just wanting to like hold anything that could mount to a gooseneck. There you go.
Yep. And then we're also giving away Scott's travel photography book.
Speaking of travel, Scott's traveling right now again, gallivanting around.
He's just gallivanting everywhere the last 2 weeks.
Oh, just gallivanting all over the place.
No, but this is an awesome book, and if you plan on doing any travel photography, I would definitely put your name in the chat to try and win it.
Yeah. And then another book, right?
Yes.
Because Scott just writes books like crazy.
Yes, he does. And this one is an awesome new book. It's the latest book. It's Light It, Shoot It, Retouch It. We actually went through, I think there's like 8 or so photo shoots that we did, and each one shows you how he lit it, and then how far away the lights were, how far away the background was from the model, every little detail that you would want to know, so that it's like you could simulate this setup and get the same shot. And then he also goes through the retouching of each one.
And get them soon, because you can see over there, only 10 left in stock. Order soon.
We worked
They keep
really
on
hard
going
on
in
that
and
book.
out of stock, so definitely order them.
That book was a work of love, I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else, Erik?
Ooh, we're giving away On One No Noise 2023. Hey, look at that. I know that image right there. That image went through On One No Noise 2023.
Oh, that's yours. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So yeah, it's a great plugin. If you're, these AI noise reduction tools are great. They really give life back to older images that had high ISO. The other thing that they do very well, especially the 2023 version of No Noise, has a thing called Tack Sharp AI. So it's like a way to sharpen your photo as well as remove noise, and then you can actually do both as well. So you can sharpen and remove noise and then sharpen all in one step.
That's awesome. I remember when, I remember, I think, sitting in a Photoshop world when this kind of technology was first starting to come out, and it was mind-blowing that we can actually reduce our noise.
Well, it's not even
computer.
like it's like it just wipes it out. It's like wiping it away from the sensor. It's kind of crazy. Which, I mean, we used to be able to do that back in the day, but it would take like, I'd spend a half an hour removing noise. Now it's like a few seconds. It's literally a few seconds.
It's
so
mind-blowing.
Yeah, and what else do we got?
And then we've got the V-flats. We've got one V-flat to give away to someone that lives in the U.S. We can only ship to the U.S., so please let us know if you want to win it in the chat. And the V-flats are awesome for setting up as a backdrop or bouncing light. They are bendable so that you can travel with them, and they make a great tool when you're doing photo shoots.
Yeah, and we use them all around the studio here.
Yep.
On all our shoots.
I was so excited when we finally got one. I was like, yeah.
And everybody can get a discount over at FleetFat Worlds. You don't have to be a winner. You can use the code KELBY10 at checkout, and you get 10% off, and that's over at vflatworld.com. So how do they enter the contest?
So if you could please just make sure to put your what you would like to win in the chat. That'll help us kind of decide who gets what. That way we're not just randomly picking people and not knowing what prize that they might want.
So yes, just let us know in the chat. No matter what chat you're on, we monitor all the chats. If you're on our YouTube, Facebook, our member site, all those chats.
Yep.
So we're looking at all of them. Very cool. Well, speaking of gallivanting, I was gallivanting last week with Scott all the way out in Texas. That was a little bit of a drive. Took the RV out there.
Nice.
Did a little bit of a drive. Went to two places. I actually took a little pilgrimage to Starbase, which is down in Texas. So it's where SpaceX is building their Starship rocket. So they're doing all their research and development and all that for the Starship project down there. But it's really cool because, one, it was like Disneyland for people like me.
What?
You know, because it's
That's
just like,
so cool.
because the other thing is anybody can get up like really close. So I'll show you some shots from Starbase. So
Okay.
this is a shot there from Starbase. So this is when you pull up. Obviously, I'm a night guy, person, so I tend to shoot at night. This was at night, late into astronomical twilight. So there's one of the rockets back there behind and they've got the Starbase sign all lit up, and these big high bays that they're building. And basically, this is, again, anybody. I no special access, no nothing. This is just, I went there to observe what's going on.
What town is this in?
This is actually right below, next to Brownsville, and then south of South Padre Island. In fact, that's where we were staying because my wife used to vacation there when she was a kid. She's from Texas.
Oh, cool.
So we went back to kind of, check it out and all that. But then right from our campsite, you could look over, and about 3 miles away is this big, huge launch pad that they're building out there.
So this is like anyone can tour it.
Yeah, anybody can tour it. So I'm just pulled off to the side of the road here, taking a shot of the Starbase. Here's another shot. This is actually, you can see, like, these are the high bays that they have there. These are the satellite tracking, and you can see there's one of the rockets that they built, and then they've got another rocket in here that they're building.
Oh, wow.
Then right out on the beach. So right on the beach, there is a huge orbital launch tower, and then you can see back there, that's one of the boosters. So that's the booster that will be on the bottom, and then the ship, it will be on the top. And then there's a closer shot of the booster there. Just again, just pulled off, walking around, shooting all this stuff. I actually, that's a shot where there was somebody parked there who had their RV out on the beach. They had their RV on the beach, and they're using Starlink. So that's SpaceX's internet.
Nice.
So you had Starlink with the pad. This was trying to tell the story of what's going on. And then there's that high bay that we were talking about with that rocket, and then you got another rocket being built.
So I guess they have one of those roll-up garage doors to get it out?
Yeah, well, there's door where they could close it, but it's really just to protect it as they're building it.
Yeah, okay.
They're literally building these things like on the beach. This is like
that's what it looked like to me, like it was on the beach, and I thought, how do they roll it out when they're ready?
Yeah, they're just rolling it out with cranes, and
wow.
It's impressive what they're doing, especially with the resources. I mean, it's an operation, but really cool. There's one of the grid fins on the boosters, And then they had, this is where you could tell if you could enter or not, is it safe, you know, that kind of stuff. And they'll have lightning warnings. This is very, very typical for us when we're on pads. A lot of times, you know, we're on pads, we're in that essential personnel only, you know, that kind of stuff. Then was able to just see them out there welding and putting together launch pads.
That's
you know,
really neat.
So just seeing, and that's what's so amazing about rockets is a lot of people don't realize. They think about, oh, you know, it's all engineering and math and science, like where it is that, but who really builds these rockets are welders, electricians, plumbers. These are the trades that actually build the rocket. Like one of my friends who works there, I mean, he previously was a pool plumber, and that's how he understands plumbing systems. And well, a rocket has a ton of plumbing systems. Right. So really cool that, you know, that's where, you know, if you're into, you know, any of those trades, welding, electrician, plumber, that's the people that are really, that's the people that are, like the majority of people that are out there building and working on the rockets are those trades.
Wow. I like that you had the sparks flying.
Yeah, the sparks flying, right? Yeah. So this is cool because, and that's where I go at that time. This is twilight where you're able to kind of balance the darkness with the brightness and you know, kind of getting all that color in there. And then what's cool is they have a whole fleet of Airstreams for their employees. Nice. Because this is kind of in a remote place. So a lot of times, and then they have these Airstreams that they'll have their employees in with Starlink already hooked up to them.
Sweet.
So really cool area. So then we went from there over to Big Bend National Park. Okay. So other side of Texas, way out in the middle of nowhere. This was one of the paths that we went down. Really cool environment. What was cool about Big Bend was it was like, well, a couple things. Well, let me show you shots.
So does your family trek with you at night like this too?
My family will sometimes trek with me. Okay. You know, but able to just capture, you know, a lot of these rock formations. This boulder that was like balanced between these, like really cool. And then what my favorite one was I found on through looking on Google, looking on other things, this area that was out there where this is an old house that was basically abandoned, but it's in this like hoodoo rock area, right? And this
like
is
in the middle of nowhere.
This is actually a mile from like the Rio Grande River. So mile from Mexico, and you would not know driving down the road. I'm parked maybe about 500 yards from the road, but you would have no idea this was here. Like it's one of those.
So how did you discover that? You just happened to find it?
What it was is I started looking on Google stuff. I found this pin of a 360 that somebody had done. Then I went on Instagram and found a similar picture that another photographer did that was even better than mine. But you know, and I just reached out and asked, "Hey, is this the spot?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's the spot." You know. Awesome. So went there and check it out. I mean, it's just really cool. These hoodoos over here, they kind of have this like kind of weird structures and face, and then you have this house, and yeah, it's just really cool. Did you go inside
the house?
Oh yeah. I'll show pictures sometime, but it's really cool. It's got like a fireplace in the corner, like very rudimentary, but it did the job back in the day when they built it, obviously. So very cool. And that's what was cool about Big Bend. Like Starbase, definitely awesome that you can get up close, but Big Bend was an interesting park because it's in West Texas, so it's kind of the Southwest, but it almost had like, there was times when my wife and daughter and I were driving around and we're going, this is like Arizona. This is like Utah. This area is like Southern California. This area is like, you know, Nevada. You know, so there's all these different areas of places that we've seen all in one park, which was very interesting.
Yeah, because I don't think of Texas like that.
I did not either. I didn't even think. And then, I mean, we got to go like, there's another area where like you get the canyon with the, like a canyon with the Rio Grande running through it. Like it's just very, very impressive. And the other thing that I thought was very interesting about Big Bend National Park is how uncrowded it was at one of the busiest times. So we went during spring break.
Right.
Locals were like, yeah, this is the busy time. And I'm looking around going, man, this is a hidden gem, because if you go to Arches or Grand Canyon, you can't get to a pullout and park. Every pullout we went to, I don't think on any pullout or vista we saw more than one other car, which does not happen nowadays in the national parks.
Wow, that's
so
awesome.
It
So
was
it's
really
like
cool.
off the beaten path.
So if you're looking for off the beaten path, quiet, really a lot of different environments, check it out. Definitely.
That's a great recommendation.
Yeah. All right. So we got people joining us all around the world, right? So
Yes,
who do we
we
got?
do. Graham Pace from Malta.
Malta,
saying hello.
wow.
Gary Collins from Scottsdale, Arizona. Karen Super from Minnesota. Hello, Karen. Nicole from Florida. I think even this area. Deb. Hello, Deb from rainy California. Lewis, High Gridsters from Mount Airy, Maryland.
All right. Well, we do need to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to dive right into editing your photos.
All right, the masking in Lightroom is crazy, and it keeps getting better. Adobe keeps adding so much stuff to it. They've added so much to it that I wanted to do a whole class just on the masking. I want to show you everything. I want to show you all the different tools, all the different functions, all the different features. You're going to be able to do so many neat things. Plus, you're going to have to spend less time jumping over to Photoshop and jumping back. If you use Lightroom, if you use Lightroom Cloud, if you use Lightroom Classic, if you use Lightroom on your mobile device, for the most part, there's a little part missing on the mobile. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to pretend it doesn't exist. But if you have Adobe Camera Raw in Photoshop and you're not using this masking stuff, I'm telling you guys, this is the real deal. This stuff is going to make your life so much easier. It's going to make you faster, more productive. You're going to get twice the work done in half the time. Come check out my brand new class on mastering masking. It's exclusively at Kelby One.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by B&H Photo, the professional source since 1973.
All right, we're back, and we're going to be editing photos. Before we get there, we do have a big conference coming next week, right?
Yes, I'm so excited.
And I'm really excited about this one. And so I haven't even got to it, but at Big Bend, I did a lot of work with my iPhone, and I just love that camera. I love it, I love it, love it. But yeah, so we got the iPhone photography conference coming next week. Tons of great instructors going to be teaching you all about how to take that iPhone and make the most of that camera. It's all about the iPhone, the camera, the processing on the iPhone, anything you need to know to master the iPhone's camera, which is really amazing. It really is.
Yeah, and I've been able to look at some of these instructors' outlines and everything that's getting prepared for it, and I think it'll be a good, comprehensive, conference on everything you'd want to know to deal with your iPhone.
Yeah.
Whether it's shooting, post, even, you know, social stuff too.
Yeah, and also for landscape photography, you know, having that 24 millimeter 45 megapixel main camera is really nice. I mean, it gives you all that detail. You never have to worry anymore when you're traveling. And still, even the 12 megapixel cameras are enough, but it's nice to have that 45 megapixel main camera.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's even going to be things that, how people can show you how to unlock things you didn't even know your phone could do.
Oh yeah, I got some secrets on the night photography stuff, definitely.
Nice.
And, well, it's more, maybe it's secrets that I screwed up certain things and then figured out certain things, or figured out how to like turn this on or turn this off, and kind of cheat the system, all that good stuff. All right, so let's jump into editing.
Okay.
How do I edit your photo? So first one, let's take one that is, this one might be a little easier for me. All right, so this is kind of in my wheelhouse. Let's start with this one. So we got a picture of a jet here. So we got an F-16. So let's go into the develop module. And first and foremost, I'm going to change the thing that is annoying me the most. And that is, I'm going to make this horizon straight. So I just got to grab the horizon line tool there. I'm going to drag out and basically tell it I want that to be straight. So right there, now the ground is straight and the plane is taking off. It doesn't look like the frame is leaning anymore. So let's go in and see about cropping though. Do we want to crop down? I actually do like this little marker out here. That tells me that you're near a runway marker. So I don't really want to remove that. So it's going to be hard of like, how much can I crop in? But I kind of want it maybe right about there. But you know, the other thing, I got to give it a little bit more breathing room. I'd rather it flying into the frame, like maybe center. So like there. Again, so that's the first step. Just kind of, you know, my first step a lot of times is that. I want to kind of get, what is my framing, as much as I can get, you know, and when you're doing air shows, you do have to crop a lot of times because these things are moving so fast, you never really nail it perfectly.
That makes sense.
So you have to do a little bit. But, you know, like you can see there, we did maybe 10%, 15%, not much. All right. So now my step is I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to start with this module. I'm going to work through, that's how I work through down. Now we can just hit that auto button like we typically do. And that kind of went a little too extreme for what I would do. Brighten it up a little too much. So what would I do? First, let's go ahead and mess around with that white balance a little bit. And then also that tint. Yeah, right in there. So like it's, again, taking it from there to there. Then I'm going to actually pull back those highlights all the way. I'm not going to open up the shadows as much. So what I'm going to actually do here is I'm going to work, when I'm working on this, I'm going to work on the overall tone of the photo and not worry about the jet yet, because I know that there's a step that I'm going to do to make that jet pop. So push maybe these down a little bit, push that black level. So now we have to where that sky, you see how the sky was like muddy, washed out, all that stuff. And then by doing that, we kind of lit it back up. We kind of brought it back to life.
You can see the sky is more blue.
See the sky. I maybe still bring it down a little bit. That might have been too much. But of course, I'm looking at your screen. I'm not sure which one it is. This is where Scott has that problem a lot of times, where that screen doesn't match this screen. I don't know what he's written, but anyways, all right. So the other thing I'm going to do here, like a lot of people will do, is they'll pop up that texture on the whole image. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to add texture to anything but that jet. So I'm not going to do the same thing with clarity. I'm not going to bust up this clarity and ruin that jet. I will add a little bit of dehaze. And when I say a little bit, like that much dehaze, which that's just, again, going to cut that out. So now we've brought that kind of like murkiness out of it. So next step, do we have to deal with any color things? I would actually like to see the sky a little bluer. It's got a little bit too much that like aqua to it. So I'm going to come down here, the hue, saturation, luminance. I'm going to pull the aqua over and I'm going to pull the blue over a little bit. And I'm going to pull the purple down. So I'm going to make like this stare. And all that's going to do, if you see if I turn this on and off, it's very subtle, but it kind of makes that blue pop a little bit. You can definitely see it in the tail of the plane where it makes the blue pop. These are little subtle things that I do that it kind of balances out. You see this later, especially with landscape photography. I'll do this a lot to kind of like isolate colors and kind of bring out colors. Then we can even go, if we wanted to, and like boost saturation of that blue, desaturate it. You know, I like, again, to give that little bit of boost. It's almost like I'm adding what a polarizing filter would do, but in post.
Yeah.
All right. Next, come down here. We want to add some sharpening to it. We want that plane and that area to pop, right? So let's go ahead and mask. I'm gonna grab the sharpening. I'm gonna grab that mask tool. I'll press the Option key, and it's gonna give me that mask to show me what I'm sharpening. I don't want to sharpen the foreground. I just want to hit that plane, right? And so now I've just hit the plane. And then the next step, I've done the corrections. I don't think I need any upright correction here. I would probably come and add a little bit of a vignette, and this is going to take hardly any, you know, something like that. But okay, so you can see right there, that's kind of, I walk through the steps. So we've gone from murky plane to like pop. You know,
I didn't even notice the trail at the end of the plane, like the little fumes.
The fumes. Like by doing that, we really accentuate that, right? So that's where, and part of that is, we could even go higher, is adding a little even more contrast. I would probably push up the contrast a little bit more, right? Maybe then take down the whites a little bit, right? But again, going from that kind of like muddy, murky, raw file to, hey, okay, now the plane, I can see that trail. So I want to actually, though, I would just want to take that jet up a notch, right? So what I know is going to happen is I'm going to come over here to the masking tool, and I'm going to hit select subject, and I bet you it's going to select that plane. Boom.
Boom.
All right. So there we go. So now I'm going to come down here, and this is where I'm going to add texture, and I'm going to probably add maybe like 40, and then a little bit of clarity, and then I'm also going to just open up some of those shadows underneath the plane, right? Maybe that's a little too much. But again, you can see if I turn that on and off, it's just kind of like adding, it's just a little subtle thing of adding a pop to the plane, adding that shadow detail. But again, we've gone from, if I go, okay, so that's kind of what I would do. Now the other thing we could do, a couple things, is I would come over here, you have sensor dust right here. So what I did is I went over to the healing, and I'm going to grab the content aware, and I'm just going to click right there. And that's going to basically take away that sensor dust that you had. Just a tell, and that's something when you go to air shows, big thing, clean your sensors, because you'll notice it. Now jets you won't notice as much, but if you do panning, you're going to notice that a lot. Especially when you start shooting at those F-18, F-22, when you have to for panning, you're going to notice any little bit of sensor dust. So cleaning that off your sensor, best thing to do. But if you don't, that's what you do. You come in here to Photoshop or Lightroom, you grab that tool, you select on it, done.
Nice.
All right. The other thing we could do with it, which I don't know if I would with this one, but if you wanted to replace the sky, you could replace the sky at this point. The only thing I would say with that is just make sure you're replacing that sky with something that's at, like, we're at 600 millimeters. So replacing a sky that's at 600 millimeters. The other thing you're going to have to do with this is because you see the foreground and you see the ground, you're going to need to replace it with a sky where you're getting some horizon, where you have that transition on horizon. It's just very normal. So
nice tips. And that's the comments that are coming in too. They're just wondering about sky replacement, and then also someone also noticed the sensor dust. So
yep. So, and somebody was asking, could you select and move the runway marker so you crop differently? Absolutely, you could. You could also just, the other thing I could do maybe would be just lose the runway marker, you know, and just say, I just don't want the runway marker. Like come in like something like that if you want to get a little tighter, you know, which again, it's all personal preference. I kind of like a little tighter like that than having the runway marker. But if you're wanting the runway marker in there, you could move it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it definitely helps separate the plane from the
All right,
background.
so you can see there we've gone from kind of murky, muddy, and what we've done there is just kind of brought the plane out. So that's typically what I would do. And then if we go in here, let's just go and reset this to the original. And then if you see, so that was before we had the crooked horizon line, all that stuff, and then we went to that. So that's what we want to do, you know, get that pop. All right. So let's look at another one. So this is a neat little canyon here. I want to be here, right? I want to be here. The one thing that I would say that I'm seeing already is I wish it was a little longer. This in here, that you did a long exposure. Well, you did a longer, so you're at 1 second. I wish it could have been like 3 seconds. 5 seconds, you would have got this a little bit smoother, all that, but we might be able to do something about that. First, let's just go through the image and just edit it. All right, now this is a raw JPEG, so I'm not gonna be able to push it as far. So it's already probably edited to a little bit, so what would I do with it? Let's just hit that auto button, see what auto does. Kind of just brightens it up. I want to add some more contrast because auto never adds enough contrast. And then I'm going to actually bring that exposure back down a little bit. I think it went too crazy, and then I'm going to push those highlights back down. I don't think I need to boost shadows too much. Blacks. So there we go. Now with this one, when you're talking about texture, I really don't see like a prominent subject that I'd want to just add texture to, so I might just add a little bit of texture to the overall image. Maybe a little bit of dehaze here, but not much. And that's about it. Color-wise, I like the colors. I don't think we really even messed anything with white balance. Yeah, it's pretty good on the colors. The only thing I will say is the water is a little kind of, I don't know, you say murky, right? It's kind of like murky. What could we do something with that, right? So let's just try to work on just the water. So you can't really, like if I do select subject, right? Well, it actually picked the water. Most of the water is select subject, but not all of the water. So that's what it considered your subject to be. So that's a nice thing to figure out when you're editing. Like it considered your subject to be the water. Right. So if you're going for that as your subject, great. This is the kind of scene that I would love to be like, actually where I'd love to be is like close to this little log here. I know you probably couldn't get out to it, but that would be the awesome shot, right? But still, great shot. So let's go ahead, let's actually use select object. And we're just going to paint over this water and say, I'm going to say, and again, I'm in select object. Let's see if this works. We're just going to select the water. It did a pretty good job. It's still having a hard time up here. I could add it manually, but let's just see if we, again, bring some blue into the water. So I'm just cooling down the water a little bit there. Maybe take out some of the green. And you can see if I turn that on and off. Very subtle, but just kind of taking a little bit of that bite out of it. I think that it's a little too far, but again, I can't tell which screen is best.
I'd probably use your computer screen.
Yeah, I'd probably use my computer screen. And then what we're going to do at that point, what we could do to make it seem a little longer is maybe take that texture down. You see how I'm taking that texture down and it kind of like takes that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take the texture down and we'll take the clarity down. And you can see how that kind of made it seem like it's a longer exposure than it is.
Yeah, it smooths it out.
Yeah, smooths it out a little bit. It's still not perfect. I still don't like the color. Maybe let's go into that and maybe just do saturation. Maybe take the saturation down, right? So we got that. Now, if we want to take that up a notch and actually do with what I'd like to do with it, a couple things. I'd like to make this log stand out a little bit more. So again, coming over to the masking tool, I'm going to go select an object. I'm going to come down here and just select that log. You can see it picks that log. I'm going to add, again, some texture to it. Maybe some a little bit of exposure value, not much at all. maybe open up the shadows on it. And again, very subtle, but you can see how it kind of brings it to where I can see more of that log over there. I can see that it's kind of added some length to that. So let's take it up even a couple more notches. I'd really like to smooth out that water. So to do that, I am gonna edit in Photoshop. I'm gonna go over to Photoshop with it.
This will be your Photoshop tip of the day.
Yeah, Photoshop tip of the day. Here we go. So I wanted to stay in Lightroom, but let's go to Photoshop for this one. So first I'm gonna duplicate the layer just so we have a comparison. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do that same object selection tool. Now, Photoshop's gonna take a little time because I have the cloud version like we've seen the last couple weeks where I've got the cloud object selection tool on. So it's going to the cloud and really starting to analyze it, and you see it's done. And see, it did a better job about selecting the water, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna select the water, and then I'm gonna come down here and just hit the masking tool, right? So now, that layer, I'm only gonna see the water. So if you see, if I click on here, you see how it's only affecting the water.
Yeah, right? It even knew the log wasn't part of it.
The log wasn't part of it. And then I'm gonna go over here to blur, and I'm gonna actually do a motion blur. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to kind of pick the same angle that the river's going, and then come up here and, I don't know why that's not showing up. That is weird. What did I do? What did I do? Blur, motion blur. There it goes. Photoshop, you know how it goes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Maybe it thought you were still just on that mask or something.
Yeah.
The layer might not have been selected.
Oh, you know what?
Anymore.
Actually, undo, 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 undo. I think you are exactly right of what I did. Yep. And then undo. There we go. I was motion blurring the layer. My bad. My bad. All right, so here we go. So now let's do that again. So let's come over here. What I would do is come down to the filter. I would go into blur, and I go to that motion blur, right? And you can see how that really accentuated the moving of the river, right? And then I can kind of play around with that amount and really mess around with that. I think that's too much, just like something in here where we're adding a little bit accentuation to the river. So you see that especially down in the back of it. Let me go off of that.
You can even reduce the opacity a little just to let the...
But you can see how that really added some blur to the river, some more blur. And if you want to go even crazier with it, you can again go to blur, you can go to motion blur, and you can add some more, right? And just keep on going with it. I mean, you do have to, there's only so far you can push it before it starts going too far. But you can see how, again, that's where we were.
Right.
And that's where we are now, where it's adding a little bit of motion blur to it. It's smoothing out that river to where this is more where I wish it would have been.
Right.
And then if we just go over here, save that out, come back over to Lightroom.
Jackie's asking, can you tell us about that Pro panel that we're looking at in Photoshop?
Sure. So the Pro panel I use a lot. It's just like it's a set of actions that do stuff for me quickly, so I don't have to. It's just a bunch of actions that I like to use. So it's an action panel that you buy for Photoshop that you can install, and it just allows me. What I really use it for a lot of times is this astrophotography. It's just these are short little things, actions that I can do that I used to do manually,
right?
That now I do in one click, and that's really honestly. And I think the guy.
Does it tell you, like, do you have to record that action first and then it knows?
No. So what's really cool, the Pro panel, it's made. Actually, John here made it, and he created a bunch of great actions that I typically would do again myself, and it was just one of those things where I was like, you know what? Instead of me having to write a bunch of actions, go ahead and just do this. Yeah. And that's honestly all it is.
Nice.
But you can see how, again, if we come back over here into Lightroom, like that's where we came, and that's where we were. So you can see, and then if I really go back, so let's go back to We're going to go and develop settings and reset that. So that's where we were, kind of like murky, and then we just kind of brought it up, blurred the water a little bit more. That's what I do with it. Maybe
your eye really tends to go to the log now too.
Yeah, it goes to the log. One thing else I would maybe do with this one is add a little bit of a vignette, right?
Nice.
So again, then we're going from this right there to that. And again, drawing you in more into the image. Well,
awesome.
Hey, we got to take another break. But when we come back, we're just going to keep on rattling through a bunch of images here.
Great. See you.
People say to me all the time, Jeff, you don't really take all those pictures on the iPhone. You're kidding, right? You actually shoot with other cameras. I do shoot with other cameras, but the majority of everything I do is on the iPhone. I just treat it like a professional camera with time-honored photographic techniques. And I would like to pass some of my tips and tricks off to you in my upcoming Kelby 1 class about how to shoot the iPhone like a pro, the advanced version. What will you learn? Let me tell you. I'll show you how to do great panoramic images, long exposures handheld, stop action with burst mode, portraits and lighting, how to do great headshots on the iPhone. We're going to show you night mode, shooting in the night, which is really cool. And of course, everybody's favorite, sunsets worth framing on the wall. Come join me, Jefferson Graham, at kelby1.com.
Hey guys, I'm Tuvi and I'm going to show you two really cool products that we at VFlat World sell. So the first one is our Duo boards, which are double-sided hyper-realistic backdrops for food and product photographers. They come in two sizes. This is the larger side. We have all different types of textures and designs. These are some of the new ones that came out recently, and they also, there's a bag option available for them. And our other product, which is what we actually started the company with, it's called a V-flat. It's a foldable V-flat, and it's used for portrait and studio photographers to control light on their subjects, to either add light with the white side or use the black side to subtract light, or even block like an unwanted window light coming in.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Canon.
All right, we're back, and we got a question here from Bill.
Yes, he's asking you, what is your preferred tool for sharpening either a RAW or a JPEG photo, and when do you do the sharpening in your workflow?
So, the sharpening is the thing of, it's done when you need it, right? So sometimes I'll do it in Lightroom, like you're saying here. If I know that I want to really sharpen a photo, I do it at the end, and it is usually using Topaz Sharpen AI. Like, same thing Scott used the same thing I use, and I use the same thing Scott used. I mean, it's just if you really want to sharpen your photo, Topaz Sharpen AI. But it is always a kind of an end thing, or something that you're finishing. A lot of photos don't need like a lot. Most photos don't need like a lot of sharpening. Yeah. But if you're wanting to just kind of take it up a notch right at the end, that's what I would do, is just run it through Topaz Sharpen AI, and it'll add that little bit of sharpening right at the end. All right.
I'm seeing the next photo already.
So this photo, interesting. So I know exactly. This is at Hollywood Studios over at, I think it's at Hollywood Studios over at
in Orlando.
Orlando, and this is like the Indiana Jones stunt spectacular, right?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Excuse me. All right. So let's go ahead, kind of that first things first, cropping. Actually, I do not want to see these people's heads. They're just distracting me to what's going on. So I'm immediately remove them out of it, right? And then the other thing I'm maybe going to do is add a little bit room for them to run into. And because I haven't really cut off anything over here that's important, you know, and all that. So kind of ending up with that frame. Ooh, I got to cut it a little bit more because there's a shadow over here that I don't like. Yeah, so like somewhere in there. In fact, actually getting to where I'm not sure if I even want to see the tanker. This is kind of distracting. I don't know. It's hard, all this distracting stuff over here. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll just leave it and deal with it later. All right. So I got to figure out first and foremost, we got to see Indiana Jones, and we got to see Marion. We got to see them. So let's go ahead and just see what select subject does. All right, so select subject picked them up, but it said, oh, I want the wheels and the background of the plane. So let's deal with that. Let's go over here, and I'm just going to subtract out using a brush. So subtracting out using a brush, and I'm just going to paint over those areas. So you can see I just eliminated all that stuff that it wanted to select and just told it, hey, I don't want that. Subtract out that. I just want Indiana Jones and Marion. I want to open them up. So the first thing I'm going to do is maybe open up some shadows, increase the exposure on them, and maybe increase some texture on them. And you can see right there, just that little bit of step, you see how that opened up to where it's Indiana Jones and Marion. You know, like you can see them, they're part of the image anymore. They're not just in shadow, which I guess some people could say I don't mind the shadow, but because everything is so brightly lit, I kind of want to see them. I want to see a little bit of detail in there. So the next thing we're going to do is go through the image, and now that we've done that, is kind of balance the image between those bright and dark areas. First thing I'm probably going to do is I'm going to take those highlights and I'm going to just crush them down, right? And you can see by just doing that, see how much flame detail we got back?
Yep.
And how the flames become alive? This is my rocket photography stuff coming in. Like that highlights to negative 100 with flames works great, right? But now, because we did that, we want to edit some other things. So I think exposure, pretty good. I mean, overall, maybe add some contrast to it. Shadow detail, maybe a little bit of shadow detail. And then I'm going to go in and crush the blacks down. Maybe open up the whites a little bit more. And you can see right there, we've gone just those few steps to where now I see Indiana Jones, I see Marion, I see that detail of the flame back there. But we're going to deal with a couple things. We got white balance we've got some people some in shadow, some in highlights. So what can we do there? We're going to have to pick what we want. And I think it's actually balanced pretty good right about there. But again, we're going to have to deal with a little bit of the contamination because we have kind of two things going on. All right. Overall, maybe increase texture, maybe do a little dehaze. And then coming down here to that hue and saturation with fire and with flames, right? This is these top hues here. So let's just pull in a little bit. I gotta pull in a little bit more. So let's go to like 200. Oh, that's maybe too much.
Cheryl's asking, how do you adjust your whites and blacks? Do you do it to your taste, or is there a certain rule of thumb?
I do it to my taste. A lot of this is done to my taste. This is what it comes down to, is like, it's how it looks to me. I do not concern myself with the numbers or the too much with the histogram and all that stuff. Like, now, some of that stuff does play into, your eye tends to go to what the histogram, will tell you, but I look at it like what I want to see. Right, so this flame detail, if I come in here, you can actually see I can pull the reds down. So you see how the edge kind of becomes a little bit more detailed as I pull those reds down.
Yeah,
you see
it's
the
so
reds,
much more vibrant.
Right, and then we're going to actually pull these oranges down, right? And you can see just by doing that little thing, it really kind of brought a lot more flame detail. It's very subtle, but I can tell you with fire, this works very well because I do a lot of shooting of fire.
Yeah, I didn't even notice there's fire on the ground too.
There's fire on the ground, but
doing that helped me see it somehow.
Yep, as you do that, it really starts increasing that fire. Now, the one thing that I want to kind of tone down maybe is there is a little bit of, in here, a magenta. So all I do is I'm going to go over to saturation. I'm going to grab this little selection tool over here. I'm going to select on this where I see that magenta kind of coming in, and you can see how it only affected the magenta, and that's all I'm seeing with my eye is there's like this magenta tone that's going over the bottom of the image and it's in shadow. And you can see where, again, that is, you see that like that reflection on the ground, you see how it kind of like took that out?
Yes.
To where there's like this like glowing magenta at the bottom. I wanted it to be more neutral, right? And you can see right there, we've gone from something like that to something like that real quick. All right. We could, again, this is where you could decide to add sharpening in Lightroom, or you could go in afterwards and add topaz sharpen, whatever you want to do. You could enable a profile correction, which is just going to pick the lens. So it went out and grabbed that Sigma lens, and we're going to remove chromatic aberrations because why not? As far as transform or upright, you could hit this auto, and yeah, that did a pretty good job. It just kind of like tilted the plane back in perspective, kind of just moved it. It's, again, very subtle. You can see it's very subtle, but it just tilted it a little bit back. And then maybe just doing a little vignette. And right there, that's what I do to that photo. I just take it to there. And you can see how just doing those things, there's depth and dimension. I could see Indiana Jones. I could see the fire and the flame and the detail.
Yep.
And I've got all that from a raw file like that to something
awesome job
where you're getting that fire.
And Stu, he's saying that he thought you might have fun with this one. He brought it into Photoshop and removed the tape on the ground. Thanks for giving him some great ideas.
And that's another thing that I think I would do here if we had more time with it, is all these little tape marks. I even think you could, if you really wanted to spend the time, is match this texture for the whole ground, because they're on a mat there that you really could like spend the time to remove that. I don't have the time right now to do that, but you could do that, because there's also the wrench here, where I know that this is part of that scene where there's a guy who hit the wrench. I don't know if the wrench actually, I might remove it, even though I know that's what it is. I might remove it just because it's kind of like I can't tell what it is.
I thought it was a gun.
Well, I really had to. Oh yeah, you can see it is a wrench.
Yeah,
you can zoom in it, but it's kind of that weird angle where I might remove it.
Tony's asking, why do you wait till the end to sharpen with AI?
So why do I wait till the end? Because I want to do all the post on it, all the stuff that could end up causing problems for the sharpening. I want to do that. I don't want to sharpen and then cause problems later. I want the sharpening to be able to see, this is the file that I want you to sharpen, and this is going to be the last thing you're going to do.
Like, this is your final thing.
This is going to be the last thing. I just want you to sharpen. So that's really all it is.
That makes sense.
Hey, so this image, this one's gonna, I'm sure, going to be quick. It's a great image, great reflection. A couple things that you all do to it up first is right here, cropping tool, right? These little pebbles on the ground, because you're not close enough to them, because you're not like really down low, they're actually distracting to me. So I'm actually, what I would do here is I go wide. So I'm gonna free my crop, and then I'm gonna go wide to where I'm maybe somewhere in here with it, right? So kind of a wide angle shot. The next thing I'm going to do is the horizon line is very crooked. So I'm going to grab that and just kind of make that horizon straighter, right? So there we go. We got like a straight horizon line, wide angle shot, all that good jazz. Now let's just go through the image. Do we want to change the white balance? No, maybe there's a little green tint to it. Maybe come in here and auto on the exposure. Maybe never adds enough contrast ever. Just my whites up. This is one where I would add texture over the whole thing, because again, it's you're focusing on a whole image. There's not really a prominent like foreground subject. So I'd maybe add texture to the whole image. Maybe do a little dehaze. You can see where that dehaze really brought out, but again, I only did like 20, 24. That dehaze really brought out that detail. You can see how it really brought out that detail in the sky. Then I don't really have, anything as far as the colors. The color, I like the blue, I like the reflection, I like all that. We could, again, do some sharpening here if we want. And then I'm just sharpening what I want, that mountain. Do we want to, it's not picking up profile correction again because it's a JPEG, it wasn't a RAW file that was sent, but we could correct the profile. I don't think we have to do any upright correction. We could hit auto and see, and you see it kind of freaked out because I don't really think there's anything it really needs to correct upright wise. And then maybe add a little vignette, right? But I mean, right there, that's when you start with a great image, a great sky, all that stuff. It's just really about processing it. Could we go even further? Yeah, maybe we could go further. We could come in here to the masking. I'm going to be curious what it's going to do with select subject. See, and the reason it does that with select subject is it's looking at the scene going, there's really not the subject is the mountains.
Yeah.
But there's not a prominent subject. It's so far away.
Right.
But the one thing I might do is go up here and hit select sky, and then maybe actually blew up the sky a little bit, and then dehaze the sky a little bit more. But again, just a subtle, like I'm doing like 4 on dehaze and like a -7 on temperature, so like hardly any. But you can see where took that this is a JPEG file that's been processed, right?
Yes.
And we took it up that little bit extra notch to something like that.
Right. A little bit makes a big difference.
Yep. So there we go.
We do have to take a break soon, but really quick before we do, I see Sharon asking, how did you free your crop?
Awesome. Yeah. So over here, there's up in the corner, there's a little lock and unlock. And you can just free your crop that way.
Nice.
Yep. That's it. And then let's just go back to just so we can reset this one so we can see. So if we go into here, we go to develop settings, we hit reset. So that's where we were, right? And this is where I'd be.
Nice.
Right.
That
so
looks
there we go.
really good.
All right.
All right. Well,
so we have
got
to take a break.
Trivia when we're coming back. So everybody get ready to answer our question and win a prize.
Hi, I'm Mary Bell. Come join me in my new class on creative portrait photography using outdoor light. Have you ever struggled with using midday sun to light your portraits and light your subject? I'm going to show you some creative ways in which you can play with midday harsh sun. We're also going to play with using architecture in your frame to frame your subjects and or to make beautiful fine artwork. We'll use leading lines, play with composition. We will hide from the sun, show you creative ways to use midday sun. Additionally, we're also going to dance around with some creative ways to use golden hour sun. And guess what, guys? In this class, we're going to combine harsh midday sun with diffuse light. So come join me now and watch my new class on kelby1.com.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Platypod, the world's most compact tripod base.
All right, we're back. And we got a trivia question.
Yes.
So Christina's going to hit us up with a trivia question.
Yeah, I got this trivia question today from the Rocky Nook Trivia, the photography trivia deck. And it's
Yeah, you can get that over at Rocky Nook.
Trivia time like everyone, yeah.
We totally
Trivia!
yeah. Trivia. There we go. All right,
Okay.
so the trivia question is,
What company introduced 35 millimeter format film in the year 1925?
all right.
So if you can
So-
just put your answer in the chat, and then Ron on the comments today will pick it out for us, and we'll let you know who wins.
All right, so let's jump into another image while we're waiting for a winner. So somebody submitted an HDR. It's like there's 1, 2, 3. Shot from New York City. We'll be there upcoming with a workshop. Scott and I will be out there with the workshop. We'll be one of the places we'll be is near this. There's actually a couple locations near this. This is over in Brooklyn, looking back into Manhattan. So let's go ahead and just see how would we edit. How would I edit an HDR, right? So first thing first, I'm going to grab all 3 files that were submitted. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go up to Photo Merge and hit HDR. This is how easy it is to make an HDR. I'm going to go there. I've got my auto align, auto settings, auto everything. You know, I can see this was shot on the tripod. And I'm going to hit merge. It adds it to the task. It merges it together. This is 3 images taken out of bracket. It generates the file and it's done, right? That's the process for making an HDR, right? So then we have this HDR file. So what it's already done for me is it selected those auto settings where it thought it would balance those 3 out, right? So I'm gonna go a little farther with it because I think we can go a little farther. So let's look at the white balance, right? I'm gonna warm it up a little bit and then add a little bit more contrast. I'm gonna open up those shadows all the way because it's an HDR. I'm gonna take those highlights all the way down because it's an HDR. And then maybe increase those whites a little bit more, right? You can see already we've gone from that was our base image
Wow.
to that.
Did they give you 3 files?
They did give me 3 files.
Okay.
So this is an HDR, and this is why HDR is great in circumstances like this. You can see where you'd be here, HDR, I'm getting so much more range. I can
Yes.
get so much more detail. Great sky, all that stuff. So a couple things. Let's start with that cropping, right? So there's one little thing down here. You see this little like part of the bridge. I just don't like that. I want to get that out. I don't want to see that. I could take that out in Photoshop, but I'm just going to crop it away for now. Because I think that's fine. That's fine. That works for me. The other thing is I'm going to go to perspective. You see how the bridge is kind of like bouncing back? It's like leaning back. It's like this, right? I want to bring that back up. So let's go over here to upright. Now I'm just going to hit auto and see what it does. I mean, I hit auto, see what it does. Now the Empire State Building, the One World Trade Center, straight up. The Brooklyn Bridge, straight up. You can see where before it's all leaning back. It's like, what's going on? I'm leaning back. And then, boom, I'm on forward. So right there, I mean, already, again, we went from this image to this image just really quickly, but we can still take it further, right? Might add a little bit more texture, might dehaze the image just a little bit. Come up here. I think color-wise, it's all good. I do see a little bit of kind of this aqua tone in the sky that I would like to warm up, make a little bit more blue. So I'll kind of pull this over here, and then pull the blue over, and then that kind of step it. And it's subtle, but you see how the top of the image, how there's like this aqua tone to the top of the image, and that remove that aqua tone.
Yes.
Right. I'm trying to, a lot of times with my landscape image, take it down to kind of very simple harmonious colors rather than having a bunch of different colors. So that's where I use hue, saturation, luminance a lot to do that, to kind of bring it. I really like this, the orange and the blue. And the orange, you got the purple blue, and you got this orange red. You know, I like these kind of like these contrasts, right? So I'm kind of, can you keep it up there?
You can kind of see the window lights now too.
Yes. So the other thing I want to do is I want to draw your eye over here, right, to this part of the image, right? Because that's where the sunset's happening, all that. Again, great image. Love the sky. The awesome skies are the best with this stuff, right? So I'm just going to grab a radial gradient, right? And I'm just going to select like right in there. And then I'm going to actually warm that up a little bit more. Maybe bring the exposure up a little bit more. Maybe some shadows. And you can see that it doesn't look like much, but if we turn that on and off, you see how it kind of like draws my eye down the image. It sucks me into the image.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do. Water too.
Right? And then what I'm going to do is kind of tone down that edge by coming all the way down here and adding a vignette too. So again, we went from this image where it was leaning back, it was kind of like that, yeah, it was, to something like that. So just really quickly, we can go to an image like that.
Nice. That was a great job.
Cool. Thanks.
Oh, I'm looking at, we do have a winner now.
All right. Who won?
Sam Knutson.
I'm going to say Knutson.
Okay.
Yeah, Sam Knutson.
And you're going to win a travel book today. And the answer was Leica. So I noticed a lot of people in the chat too was putting in Kodak, which was my initial instinct. I was thinking Kodak.
Yeah.
But Leica was the
there you go.
One that introduced 35 millimeter film.
All
right. Looks like we have some prize winners too.
All right, so the prize winners, who do we have? We've got the goosenecks are going to Rick Greenlee. And then we have the travel photography book is going over to Sam, which we just talked about. Light It, Shoot It, Retouch It is going to Jackie. And then On One No Noise 2023 is, ooh boy, you might have to help with Reboir. Abby Doust. Sounds right. Rebar Abby Doust. And then the V flat is going over to Lisa Squires 1. So Lisa Squires 1, congratulations. So there you go. So email us over at
go to grid. Please email us at gridprize@kelby1.com and let us know your shipping address so that way we can get you your prize and verify you.
All right. Well, you wanna do one more?
Sure, let's do one more. Oh, and all prizes need to be claimed no later than the end of day of this Friday, please.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah, that's probably a good thing, right? So, ooh, this is interesting, right?
That looks like your wheelhouse too.
Yeah, my wheelhouse, right? I like this, right? And actually, speaking of that, I do have that workshop coming up this summer, Milky Way workshop, where we're going to do all the Milky Way stuff.
Yes.
But you know what's interesting about it? You know who's coming to my workshop now too?
Who?
As an attendee? Jefferson Graham.
Oh, wow.
So it's like the Kelby One instructor party over here.
Yeah, you're going to have Russell Brown there. Special guest appearance.
Jefferson Graham. And then, so I have me, Jefferson Graham, Russell Brown out there with you. Now we just got to get Scott to come.
There you go.
The only problem is Scott's like 3 o'clock in the morning. No, thank you. Midnight. No, thank you. All right. So so let's look at this Milky Way image here. So we want to make this image pop, right? So I'm gonna stick in Lightroom, try to do as much as we can in Lightroom. So let's first go to the cropping, right? I really want this core to be a little bit more in the center. So I'm gonna bring it down where it's kind of like it's gonna pop right there in the center. And that also brought my horizon line to kind of the horizon of the image anyways. So I'm going to bring it into that. We got some light pollution over here. We got light coming in, but it's nice. We'll deal with that. Right? First things, I'm going to bring my white balance down, right? So you can see where when it's up here, it's got this like kind of like I don't know, it's too warm, it's got too much magenta, all that stuff. And in fact, if you want to see this really good, if I put up my vibrance and saturation and then start messing around with my white balance, you can really see. You see how it kind of transitions really warm and then really down, right? We want to kind of meet it in the middle somewhere. And then we want to also, with that tint, meet it in the middle somewhere, right?
Wow.
Right? And what we're going to do then is watch if I take that vibrance saturation down. See how the sky became very kind of muted? We actually want that, because what we're going to do now is really accentuate what was going on. We can actually bring back in that vibrancy. We can bring back in some saturation. And you can see how it took, you see how it, like, that was what I was talking about, where it's like purpley magenta in the sky. And then now we went down to like, this is actually what it looks like more, where you've got the core, it's kind of lit up. And then it's behind a very kind of like a bluish sky.
Yep.
Right? And that's what we want. Next thing, we're gonna go here with the exposure. I can tell you this, do not hit auto on a Milky Way shot. Watch what happens.
Whoa.
It's like, it's just gonna go, I'm gonna go crazy with it. It doesn't work at all, right? I really don't want to, this is a night shot. I don't want to really add a bunch of exposure. A lot of people like start bringing up the exposure. You want it to be a night shot. I'm gonna add a little bit of contrast. I'm gonna maybe open up some of those shadows in the foreground just a little bit so we can see the shadows, but not too much. We can actually, with an image like this, I'm not gonna mess around with highlights. I'm gonna maybe crush the blacks a little bit. And then this is where it's gonna get interesting, because I'm gonna actually negative the texture a little bit. And I'm gonna increase the clarity. And you see when I increase the clarity, how the Milky Way core comes right out?
Right.
Right, so I'm gonna increase it a little bit here, and I'm gonna do a little bit of dehaze, but now I'm gonna take it a step farther. I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna go to the masking, I'm gonna hit that sky. And now I'm gonna do the same thing, but I can push it even further. So I'm gonna go negative texture, positive clarity.
Wow, it really brings out the stars.
And then I'm gonna dehaze it a little bit more, right? And you can see by doing that, how it really brought out that core and brought out that pop in it, right? So now we can go back over here, go through our steps again. There's a couple things like I might also go in here, do that same thing where we're gonna select the sky, and then I'm going to invert that just to select the foreground. And I might actually go in and desaturate the foreground just because it's a little too saturated. And then I'm also going to take down those highlights, because there's those highlights coming in from the tree. You can see them over there to the right. And that's just from a light probably that was in a parking lot or in a park or something we have to always deal with when we're out there in those environments. All right. And then hue, saturation, luminance, I think overall pretty good, but we could accentuate stuff if we wanted to. We don't need to, I don't really want to sharpen too much. We're already at 6400 ISO. Now that's one thing I didn't do here. This would be a great image that if we took this in, I would have denoised it up front and then done the edits. And that would have just made it a little bit cleaner when you blow it up, is what it's gonna do. It's gonna wipe out that noise when you blow it up. All right, and then maybe add a little bit of a vignette, right? But you can see how just by doing that, we really made that core pop.
Yeah,
right.
The colors come out too.
Now that's where we really want to get into that. We really want to get into this stuff. We want to light paint that scene, or maybe do a composite or other things that we can do. And that's a lot what I teach in my classes and at my workshops, is all those things that we can do to kind of take that image to where very similar to, you know, what we're doing like in here, or what we're doing in here, or these, you know, where we're able to really bring it out. So that's where you just got to learn those techniques and stuff, but it's that basic editing style that I just did is the same thing that we do with these images.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you have classes on the Milky Way too.
Yep.
I know a lot of people have just said that it's helped them so much with their photography and made a big difference.
Well, it's an interesting genre. I mean, I love it because it's one of those things where you do get out there in a really cool environment and you're able to see it with your eye and you're able to capture those things. And a lot of times when I'm out there, I'm working with other people. So this is a great genre to help each other out, especially when you get into light painting.
Yeah.
That's definitely one where we're constantly helping each other out, moving stuff around. My family will be out there helping me as well.
They'll be flashing light on your foreground or something.
And a lot of times I do a lot of low-level light painting where we're using almost like a studio light, but it's very dim. So to do a lot of these shots.
Fun.
Right? Where it's you don't want it to look like it's lit. It's like flash.
Right.
Same thing. You don't want to look like it's lit. You want it to be very subtle, like it's lit. You know, I think that's where Milky Way photography is kind of going in this weird genre right now where like, and Scott and I talk about this a lot, where it's like people want to like make the image like super bright, and then it's like, well, it's not a night image anymore if everything's like super bright. So they're like taking like a daytime image and then sticking a Milky Way over it. And it's like, it's like a epidemic.
It's like a faux pas.
Yes. Well, but it's just it's very much an epidemic nowadays. A lot of people are doing that. Yep. Well, there you go.
Well, good job.
Yeah. I wish I could get to more, but only so much time. So, well, we won't be here next week. We won't be here next week. So next week we've got the iPhone Photography Conference. So definitely check that out. Oh, look at it. We got a little trivia thing like over the top of us.
Are you awake back there?
Hey. And now look at us.
I'm
We're like
super excited.
we're like halfway dim. I think he hit like, oh, look at it came back. He was trying to put up the little that was a what we call a mist punch in the industry,
control room.
Right? You get a little mist punch. He was trying to do the iPhone Photography Conference overlay there.
But it hit
the trivia button.
Oops.
So
that's okay.
Hey, it happens. And look we got a little thumbs up over here from the crew. So all right, so we won't be here next week, but the following week we will be here. I know Scott and I will be just coming off of the iPhone Photography Conference and Sun and Fun. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to be talking about next week.
Yep, and if you can, join us at the iPhone conference. We'll be over there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in the chat. And
I can't wait for it. It's going to be awesome.
We'll have a little community of people all during the conference.
Tons of photographers signed up for that, so I'm really excited for it. Don't miss it. Make sure you're there. iPhone Photography Conference next week.
cubby1live.com.